Hi guys, it's Leanne, and something happened. That's kind of a bit of a fib, let's be perfectly honest. So, something didn't happen. Books happened. Don't worry, I haven't broken my no by 18. I'm still right there. But nevertheless, books have appeared in my life, and because you guys were so incredibly enthusiastic about seeing my most anticipated from my shelves for Crime Corner, I decided that I would also bring you a Crime Corner book haul, because I'm nice like that and I like to spoil you. There is a bunch of different stuff in this haul, from new releases to new prize winners to backlisted titles. So I'm gonna jump right in there. And the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the books out of the way that belong to series ZZZs. Because let's face it, you're only gonna be interested in those books if you're interested in those series ZZZs. So firstly, what I've got is a tiny stack of Karen Slaughter. So Karen Slaughter has two main series that she writes, and I am collecting the books for both of those at the moment. So the first one is the Grant County series, which starts with Blindsighted, and I picked up the second one this time around, and this is Kiss Cut. And then the other series that she writes is the Will Trent series. Now these series intersect at the end, so if you want to read them chronologically, you should start with the Grant County series and then you can start reading the Will Trent series either alongside or afterward. And what I have here is Fractured, which is the second book in the Will Trent series, and then Criminal, which is 6, and Unseen, which is 7. I do not usually break my own rule of buying series either out of order or all in one go, because I have learned as a reader, as many of you guys have probably also learned, that is dangerous and not necessarily the best way to go, because you can get 2 or 3 books into a series and be like, I'm not doing that anymore. But I have the two things going for me when it comes to Karen Slaughter. One, I freaking love her writing. And 2, the wonderful Kirsti from The Tea Is Also Cursed is a massive Karen Slaughter fan and assures me that I'll be fine, and she knows my reading tastes very well and I 100% trust her. So, I also picked up Coptown, which I can tell you a little bit more about because this one is a standalone novel. This one sounds like it is going to be super lots of fun. It is set in Atlanta in the early 70s and it follows 2 women. There's a manhunt going on in Atlanta, and Kate Murphy wonders if perhaps that wasn't the best day to pick to come back to work. And then there's Maggie Lawson, who really is only there because she joined the police to make herself worthy in the eyes of her brother and her uncle. Which, by the way, kids, is a very, very, very bad life choice. Let's not judge our self-worth based on other people. Okay? Okay. And delightfully, Kate and Maggie become partners, and they end up being sidelined for this manhunt to find this killer, and they have to work together, and I just think that's epic, because one of the things in The Good Daughter that I loved so freaking much was the sheer depth of female friendship and sisterly goodness and bigging up women and not bringing them down, because sister bitches is just not a thing anymore, guys. I don't really ever think it was a thing, but the media would like us to believe that it was, so we'll just let them do that. And now into the juicy standalones, shall we? Yes, we shall. First of all, you won't be surprised to find Lullaby, of course, on my TBR. Because really though, Layla Slimani seems to have tapped into something inherent in all of us about fear of nannies or horror tropes of nannies, and I would venture to say that this one does stick its foot in the horror genre. Although I would quite like it if places like the Daily Telegraph didn't keep calling anything written by a woman, which is a thriller, the next Gone Girl. I would just appreciate that. If you don't mind, sir, there are plenty of other thrillers out there that were just as wonderful as Gone Girl. Maybe get a clue and reference some of them. This one is about Miriam, and Miriam is a probably quite attractive nanny from what I can see from the beginning of the blurb. And she is perfect in every way, but not very Mary Poppins. And she joins a family and starts to take care of the house and the kids, and basically she insinuates herself and makes herself pretty indispensable, and everybody in the relationship comes to rely on each other more and more and more until something happens that not everybody's happy about. I've seen loads of people talk about this, but I don't think I've seen anybody read the first couple of lines in their videos, and I just don't understand why, because the baby is dead. It took only a few seconds. The doctor said he didn't suffer. The broken body, surrounded by toys, was put inside a grey bag, which they zipped shut. I succumbed to peer pressure, and with my gift card I picked up The Chalk Man by The Chalk Man by CJ Tudor. It's not that I don't think this is going to be a good story. I'm sure it's going to be a good story, but it's getting the kind of hype and the kind of reviews that Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough was getting about the whole like hashtag don't reveal that completely ludicrous ending that doesn't make any freaking sense and isn't at all set in the real world but is actually paranormal romance. And hype really kills my buzz sometimes, but I'm sick of hearing people talking about it, so I've picked it up to find out what I think about it. And the lovely Claire from the Book Fox says that it's really, really good. So this one has the vaguest of all synopses. So all I know is that nobody can agree on whether the chalk drawings just started turning up or whether the villagers started drawing the chalk drawings, but there are chalk drawings, and then there's an accident, and then there's a body. Battery died, sorry if the angle's changed, whoopsie whoopsie, on we go. One that I am extremely excited about, unlike The Chalk Man, and that I know that I'm going to love, or that I know that I'm going to want to love, is this one. This is The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. Not only is it beautiful, but it has a brilliant premise. This one is basically Rear Window with less Hitchcock crack. So this is about a woman who is agoraphobic. She is stuck in her apartment building. She lives her life vicariously through all of her neighbours and looks like she keeps meticulous journals. And one day she sees something that she was really not meant to see, and she has to decide what she's going to do with this information. The font is super, super massive. I'm going to fly through it so quickly. I am buddy reading this one with the lovely Joss from Scribbles Reads. And can I just say that on the back of this book, the list of people who have blurbed this, we have Jane Harper, we have Tess Gerritsen, we have Stephen King, and we have Ruth Ware. It's like all my thriller dreams came true and they made this book. This pile is getting a bit precarious. Okay. I have a couple of novels now which are not new releases but have been on my TBR for freaking forever. Why are they in this haul, Leanne, do you say? Well, it's because they're on my Kindle, and I keep forgetting that they're on my freaking Kindle, and I really, really, really want to read them. And the copies on my Kindle are review copies, so I don't feel bad about purchasing these with gift cards and supporting the authors. So I have these two books here. So we're going to start with this one. It's about a serial killer who is, or rather it's about the people who are left behind after a serial killer who nobody realised for a long, long time was a serial killer was caught. So it's about his wife, it's about the investigative journalist who first told the story, and it's about the detective who sent him to jail. And I am very there for it because I like novels about repercussions wherein we have more mystery elements, and that is exactly what this one is. This one being What You Don't Know by Joanne Chaney, because I apparently just don't need to mention the names of books anymore. I can tell you by osmosis. Then we have The House, which is a horrible neighbour story, which I'm also very there for because I have had a few horrible neighbours in my time. So in this one, Simon Lellick tells us a story of a young couple who have purchased a house that they desperately, desperately wanted. And when they move into this slightly weirdly cheap house, they discover something in the attic which makes them pause. But rather than reporting it, because the house was so cheap and everything's perfect, they decide they're just going to forget that it existed. And then somebody's murdered outside of their back door, and now the police are watching them. Next up, I have a couple of Costa Book Awards winners. So I have this one here by John McGregor, which is Reservoir 13, which I think just won the general novel category. I will correct myself if I'm wrong down the bottom. This one is apparently quite an interesting timeliney book. So it is about a small village in the English rural countryside, and a young girl goes missing and a huge search happens. Then I think it follows the year after this happens, so I don't know whether they find her or they don't find her, or they find her and bad things have happened. It follows this town through the year aftermath following this horrible tragedy and how it has impacted everybody. That's a very vague synopsis. I'm not usually that vague, but I have definitely kept myself in the dark about this one because it's really hypey right now, because everybody's, you know, talking about it because it's just won the Costa, and so I'm just trying to avoid all of that and go into it with blinkers on. I have In the Days of Rain by Rebecca Stott, and this one is a true crime. So this essentially is Rebecca's memoir and her father's memoir, and Rebecca grew up in a cult which worshipped Satan in England, and her father was a pretty big cult leader. And then when her father gets really ill, he asks Rebecca if she will tell his story, but unfortunately in doing that she unearths things about their past that she didn't know existed, and we end up going down the rabbit hole with her of exactly what happens life after cult. Y'all might remember the last time I reviewed a book about a cult and exactly what kind of reception that review got. So needless to say, I'm a little bit trepidatious about this one, so I'm hoping it's going to be fine. The other non-fiction that I have got here is one that was on my most anticipated books of 2017, and it is A False Report. This one was written by T. Christian Miller and Ken Armstrong. So on the 11th of August 2008, I think it was, yes, 18-year-old Marie reported to the police that someone had broken into her apartment and she had been raped, and the police did a thorough investigation and they decided that Marie had filed a false report, and they essentially pushed her, from what I'm getting from the synopsis, to admit to that. And so she falsely admitted that she had submitted a false police report. And then a couple of years later, a detective was working a case where there had been a home invasion and a rape, and they connected the dots and they reopened the whole thing and started looking into it, and this is the book that resulted from that. Last two that I have are both books that I just discovered by accident as a complete surprise. Didn't know either of them were coming out and was thrilled to find both of them. So this one is Anything You Say by Gillian McAllister, and essentially it is about a woman who is having a girly night out with her friends. She's a little bit drunk, everybody's a little bit drunk, and then she is walking home alone at night and she hears someone following her, and then the book splits. So the question that's asked on the back here, you'll see how it splits, is now what? Do you call 999 or do you run? Because you've done something to the person who is following you that you now very much regret. I am really here for this one. I really hope it's good. I read the first like 6 or 7 pages of it in the store and was just like, I'm gonna take it home with me and I'm gonna finish it and then I'm gonna tell everybody about it. Just have to do the finishing part now. And the next one that I've got is one of those purchases which is kind of like Bad Leanne. Now, I have said before in this video, I tend not to buy next books in series if I haven't read the first one, because you never know whether you're going to like them. I bend that rule a little more for standalones because I have had occasions where I have bought an author's first work or an earlier work, and then a later one has been really, really hyped, and I've ended up reading the later one first and enjoying the earlier one that sat on my shelves for ages way more because of that experience. So it's all, you know, it's all kind of up in the air how you do it, but my general rule tends to be that if I haven't read a book by that author, I try not to buy another one. But then this happened. This is 17 by Hideo Yokoyama, and I regret nothing because, guys, it is signed, and it is the most beautifully signed edition I have ever seen in my life. So not only are the UK publishers of Hideo Yokoyama's books carrying on with this really cool removable, I don't know, thing on the front and the full page pictures on the back, but look at these end papers. I mean, hello. And then not only is it signed by Hideo Yokoyama here and stamped with this beautiful stamp, but it is also signed by Louise Hill Kawai, who is the translator into English in the UK. Luckily this is another standalone, it's not one in a series, so I don't think it's going to be a problem, and in fact I might read this one before I read 6-4 because 6-4 is like 1.5 times the size of this one. So this one is about Kazumasa Yuki, who is a reporter in what I think is the 70s, oh no, it's the 80s, in the 80s, and he is a reporter for a really well-known paper, and in the 80s there is an awful air crash, an awful, terrible, horrible air crash, and he and his fellow reporters at the paper end up working on this crash for a good amount of time, and some things to do with it are never solved. And now in 2002, years and years later, he is remembering everything that happened during those events in the 80s and deciding that now is the time that he has to make good on a promise that he made then. Dun dun dun. And these end pages are the key staff at both the paper and the airline, and a timeline of what happened with the air disaster and everybody who was involved in it. It's perfect. So that is everything that I have for this unexpected crime corner haul. Please let me know if you have read any of these books, especially Chalkman. Please tell me whether you enjoyed Chalkman or not. And if you haven't, have I inspired you with my stack here to buy any of these? Let me know. And now I'm going to go and take a thumbnail before I drop all of these books on my feet, which I feel is imminent, and I've had a bad enough day without doing that. So I'll be back very soon with my actual Crime Corner most anticipated, of which this is simply more. More is more. More is more. Bye!